The crack of bone against concrete echoed through the narrow alley as Olivia Sterling's $1,000 heels snapped beneath her. Three shadows emerged from the darkness, their eyes gleaming with predatory hunger as they cornered the city's youngest female billionaire. Her bodyguard lay unconscious 20 feet away, her phone shattered on wet pavement. In 30 seconds, everything she'd built would mean nothing, unless the homeless man huddled by the dumpster was more than he appeared. Welcome to a story where salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Stay with me until the end and comment your city below. I'd love to know how far this story has traveled. The rain had started falling just after midnight, transforming Manhattan's financial district into a maze of reflective surfaces and treacherous shadows. Olivia Sterling stood at the entrance of the Meridian Tower, watching her breath form small clouds in the October air. At 32, she commanded a real estate empire worth $4 billion, but tonight, all that power felt as insubstantial as the mist rising from the storm drains. "Ms. Sterling, your car will be here in 5 minutes," Marcus, her head of security, said through her earpiece. His voice carried that professional calm that had made him worth every penny of his six-figure salary. "Traffic's heavy due to the weather." "Copy that," Olivia replied, her fingers absently scrolling through the acquisition reports on her phone. The Hayworth building deal had finally closed, adding another jewel to Sterling Industries' crown. Her competitors would wake up tomorrow to find she'd outmaneuvered them again. The thought should have brought satisfaction, but lately, every victory felt hollow, like echoes in an empty mansion. She'd dismissed her usual security detail early, keeping only Marcus for the late meeting. It was a decision that would haunt her in approximately 4 minutes and 30 seconds, though she didn't know it yet. The city had taught her to be careful, but success had made her comfortable. Comfort, in a city like New York, was the first step toward catastrophe. The loading dock beside the tower offered a shortcut to the executive parking area, a path she'd taken hundreds of times. Tonight, something made her hesitate at its entrance. Perhaps it was the way the single overhead bulb flickered, casting dancing shadows that seemed almost alive. Or maybe it was the unusual silence, as if the city itself was holding its breath. "Marcus, I'm taking the alley route to the parking structure," she said, stepping into the narrow passage. The click of her heels echoed off the brick walls, a staccato rhythm that masked the sound of footsteps following her. "Negative, Ms. Sterling. Wait for—" The earpiece crackled, then died. She tapped it twice. Nothing. The rain must have interfered with the signal, she reasoned, though unease prickled along her spine like ice water. The alley stretched before her, maybe 60 feet of cracked asphalt and accumulated urban decay. Dumpsters lined one wall, their contents spilling onto the ground in aromatic testimony to the restaurants that backed onto this forgotten slice of the city. Steam rose from a subway grate, creating ghostly pillars that twisted in the wind. That's when she saw him. The first one. He stepped out from behind a dumpster like he'd been waiting there all along, which she would later realize he had. Tall and lean, with the kind of wiry strength that came from street fighting rather than gym memberships. His face was all angles and scars, dominated by eyes that held no warmth, only calculation. "Well, well," he said, his voice carrying a trace of an accent she couldn't place. "Olivia Sterling herself, taking a midnight stroll. How fortunate." Her hand moved instinctively to her phone, but before she could complete the motion, 2 more figures emerged from the shadows. The second man was massive, shoulders that could have doubled as a city bus, with hands that looked capable of crushing stone. The third was smaller, quicker, with the nervous energy of a knife blade, which, she noticed with growing alarm, he actually held in his right hand. "Gentlemen," Olivia said, proud that her voice remained steady despite the fear coursing through her veins like electricity. "Whatever this is, we can resolve it civilly. I have money—" "Oh, we know you have money," the first man interrupted, taking a step closer. The smell of cigarettes and something chemical wafted off him. "That's exactly why we're here. See, your company just bought the Hayworth building. Problem is, that building was promised to some very important people. People who don't take disappointment well." The pieces clicked into place in Olivia's mind with horrible clarity. The Calabrese family. She'd known they had interests in the Hayworth deal, but her lawyers had assured her everything was legal, above board. Apparently, the Calabrese family operated by different rules. "This is about business?" She forced a laugh that sounded hollow even to her own ears. Then let's handle it like business people. Name your price. The big man chuckled, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. Lady, you don't get it. This ain't about money anymore. It's about sending a message. The knife wielder stepped forward, the blade catching the flickering light. A very clear message. Olivia's mind raced through her options. Run? Her broken heel made that impossible. Fight? 3 against 1, and she hadn't been in a physical altercation since a 6th grade playground dispute. Scream? Who would hear her in this urban canyon, with the rain muffling everything? Marcus, she called out, though she knew it was futile. Marcus, code red. The first man shook his head almost pityingly. Your security guy? Let's just say he's taking an unexpected nap. Very unexpected. They were closing in now, forming a triangle with her at the center. The brick wall pressed against her back, cold and unforgiving. Her Hermes bag, worth more than most people's cars, suddenly seemed like the most useless thing in the world. What good was luxury when you were facing the raw, primitive violence that lurked beneath civilization's thin veneer? Please, she said, hating herself for the word but unable to stop it. We can work something out. I'll sell you the building, below market price. Too late for that, the leader said. He pulled something from his pocket. Not a weapon, but a phone. See, we're supposed to record this. Make sure everyone knows what happens when you cross certain lines. The horror of it crashed over her like a wave. This wasn't just assault. It was going to be a performance, a brutal theater designed to terrorize anyone who might challenge these people in the future. She was about to become an unwilling actress in her own destruction. That's when she heard it, a sound so incongruous with the moment that at first she thought she'd imagined it. A cough. Not from her attackers, but from the pile of refuse near the far dumpster. What she'd taken for garbage bags shifted, and a figure emerged from the urban camouflage. He looked like the city's forgotten children, the ones who lived in the margins and shadows. Torn military jacket hanging off a lean frame, jeans so worn they were more suggestion than fabric. His hair was long, unkempt, hanging in wet strands that obscured most of his face. But his posture, there was something about the way he stood, balanced on the balls of his feet, that didn't match the rest of the picture. Hey, the man said, his voice rough from disuse or drink. This is my spot. Take your business somewhere else. The 3 attackers turned almost in unison, their expressions ranging from amusement to annoyance. The big man laughed outright. Would you look at this? A bum-playing hero! He cracked his knuckles, the sound like breaking twigs. Get lost, old man, before you become part of the show. The homeless man, though Olivia was beginning to suspect that term didn't quite fit, took a step forward. The overhead light caught his face for just a moment, and she glimpsed eyes that were startlingly clear, focused with an intensity that belonged in a boardroom or a battlefield, not a dark alley. I said, he repeated, each word deliberate as a hammer strike, leave her alone. The leader of the 3 sighed dramatically. Ricky, handle this distraction. We've got work to do. The knife wielder, Ricky apparently, spun toward the newcomer with practiced ease. My pleasure. Haven't had a warm-up in weeks. What happened next would replay in Olivia's mind for months afterward, usually in the small hours when sleep eluded her. Ricky lunged forward, knife extended in what looked like a professionally executed thrust. The homeless man flowed to the side, his hand coming up in a motion so swift it seemed like time had skipped a frame. There was a sound like a branch snapping, and suddenly Ricky was on his knees screaming, his knife hand bent at an impossible angle. Karate, the homeless man said quietly, almost conversationally. Specifically, Shotokan. 23 years of practice, though it's been a while since I've had to use it like this. The big man roared and charged like a bull, all mass and momentum. The homeless man dropped low, so low his palms touched the wet asphalt, and the giant's momentum carried him over and past. As he went by, the homeless man's leg swept up in a perfect arc, catching him in the solar plexus. 300 pounds of muscle hit the ground with a sound that shook the windows above them. The leader had his gun out now, a compact pistol that looked like death-made metal. Okay, enough games. You just signed your death warrant, hero. But the homeless man was already moving, zigzagging in a pattern that seemed random but wasn't. The first shot went wide, sparking off the brick wall. The second would never come. The homeless man's hand shot out, grabbed the leader's wrist, and twisted in a motion that was part dance, part devastation. The gun clattered across the asphalt as the leader found himself airborne, then very much not airborne as he met the ground with crushing finality. In less than 30 seconds, 3 professional criminals lay groaning on the rain-slicked pavement. The homeless man stood in the center of the chaos, chest heaving but otherwise seemingly unaffected. He looked at each of the fallen men in turn, then said in that same quiet voice, "Leave. Now. Don't come back." Ricky was the first to move, cradling his broken wrist as he stumbled to his feet. He helped the leader up, who was holding his ribs and breathing in short, painful gasps. The big man required both of them to get vertical, and even then he swayed like a tree in a hurricane. "This isn't over," the leader wheezed, but the threat sounded hollow now, deflated. "Yes," the homeless man said with absolute certainty. "It is." They left, supporting each other, their earlier swagger replaced by the stumbling gait of the thoroughly defeated. Olivia watched them go, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. She'd seen violence before, corporate violence, the kind that destroyed companies and careers. But this was different. This was primal, immediate, and somehow beautiful in its precision. She turned to thank her savior, but he was already walking away, heading back to his spot by the dumpster. "Wait!" she called out. "Please, wait!" He paused, but didn't turn around. "You should go. Your security will be looking for you." "You saved my life." The words felt inadequate, like trying to describe a symphony with a single note. "I don't even know your name." He turned then, just enough for her to see his profile in the dim light. There was something noble in that profile, she thought, like a statue of a forgotten king. "Jack," he said simply. "My name is Jack." "Jack." She tested the name, found it solid, dependable. "I'm Olivia Sterling. I know who you are." There was no judgment in the statement, just acknowledgement. "The whole city knows who you are." "Then you know I can reward you. Money, a job, a place to live, anything you need." He actually laughed at that, a sound that was surprisingly warm despite the circumstances. "I don't need anything from you, Ms. Sterling. I did what anyone should do." "But they didn't," she pointed out. "No one else would have helped. No one else would have risked." She gestured at the alley, at the blood on the asphalt where Ricky had fallen. "Then that's their failing, not my virtue." He started walking again. "Go home, Ms. Sterling. Forget this happened." But Olivia Sterling hadn't built a $4 billion empire by forgetting things. She watched him settle back into his spot by the dumpster, pulling a threadbare blanket around his shoulders. Even in rest, there was something about his posture, a readiness that spoke of constant vigilance. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, finally. "Ms. Sterling, your tracker went dark. I'm fine, Marcus. I'm in the alley behind the building, and we need an ambulance." "Are you injured?" She looked at Jack one more time. He'd closed his eyes, but she had the distinct feeling he was still aware of everything around him, like a resting cat. "No," she said, "but you are, and we need to talk about your replacement." As she waited for her security team to arrive, Olivia's mind was already working, piecing together the puzzle that was Jack. The fighting style he'd mentioned, Shotokan karate, wasn't something you picked up at the local YMCA. 23 years of practice meant dedication, discipline. So how did someone with that kind of training end up sleeping beside a dumpster? The rain had stopped, leaving the alley washed clean, as if nature itself was trying to erase what had happened. But some things, Olivia knew, couldn't be erased. They left marks, invisible but indelible, on everyone they touched. When Marcus arrived, supported by 2 other security guards and sporting an impressive bump on his head, Olivia was still standing there, watching Jack pretend to sleep. "Ms. Sterling, we need to get you out of here," Marcus said, professional despite his obvious concussion. "The police are on their way." "The men who attacked us are gone," she said. "That man—" She pointed to Jack. "He saved me." Marcus squinted at the figure by the dumpster. "The homeless guy? He stopped 3 attackers?" "He's not just homeless, Marcus. He's something else." She let them lead her away, but not before taking one last look at Jack. In the distance, sirens were approaching, their wails cutting through the night like promises of safety that came too late. But for Olivia, safety had come in the most unexpected form. A warrior disguised as a vagrant, a hero who wanted nothing more than to be left alone. As her car pulled away from the alley, Olivia made a decision. She would find out who Jack really was. Not because she needed to reward him, though she would find a way to do that whether he wanted it or not, but because she recognized something in him that she'd seen in herself. Someone who'd been broken by life but refused to stay down. The city scrolled past her window, millions of lights that represented millions of lives, all interconnected in ways they'd never fully understand. Somewhere among those lights was a story, Jack's story, and Olivia Sterling had never walked away from a mystery she couldn't solve. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed her lawyer's number. "Olivia, thank God." David Crenshaw's voice was tight with worry. "I just heard from my contact at the NYPD, the Calabrese family. They already tried, David, and they failed." "What? How?" She smiled, the first genuine smile she'd felt in months. "Let's just say I had an guardian angel. A very unlikely one." "Olivia, this is serious. They won't stop with one attempt. You need to increase security, maybe leave the city for a while." "No." The word came out harder than she intended. "I'm not running, but I do need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to research someone, but first name Jack, probably military background, trained in Shotokan karate, currently homeless in the financial district." "That's not much to go on." "Then you'd better get started." She ended the call and leaned back in the leather seat, her mind already racing ahead. The Calabrese family thought they could intimidate her, make her another victim in their long history of violence and coercion. They were about to learn that Olivia Sterling didn't become one of the youngest billionaires in the country by backing down from fights. But first, she had a debt to repay. 3 blocks away, Jack opened his eyes and looked at the spot where Olivia had stood. He'd heard every word of her phone conversation, a skill developed from years of needing to be aware of his surroundings. She would come looking for him, he knew. They always did, the ones he helped. They wanted to understand, to categorize, to fix. He pulled out a worn photograph from his jacket pocket, protected by a Ziploc bag from the rain and time. A little girl smiled back at him, gap-toothed and bright-eyed, standing in a karate dojo wearing a white gi that was too big for her small frame. Emma, his daughter, his everything. "I kept someone safe tonight, baby girl," he whispered to the photograph. "Just like I couldn't keep you safe." The memory crashed over him like it always did, a tsunami of guilt and grief. The car accident, the drunk driver who walked away without a scratch while his 7-year-old daughter died in his arms, the spiral that followed, the drinking, the fights, the loss of his dojo, his home, his identity. Everything except the skills that his sensei had drilled into him since he was younger than Emma had been. "Karate is not about fighting," Master Yamamoto had said. "It's about protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Tonight he'd honored that teaching, even if he couldn't honor much else anymore. Jack tucked the photograph away and settled back against the cold brick wall. Tomorrow, he'd have to move, find another spot, another shadow to disappear into. It's what he did now. Exist in the margins, a ghost of the man he used to be. But tonight, for just a moment, he'd been something more. He'd been what his daughter always believed he was, a hero. The rain started again, gentle this time, like tears from a grieving sky. Jack closed his eyes and let it wash over him, a baptism of sorts for a man who'd forgotten how to be clean. Olivia's penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of the Sterling Tower, a monument to success that scraped the sky 40 stories above Manhattan. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city sleep, or pretend to sleep, because New York never truly rested. Somewhere out there, Jack was huddled in his makeshift shelter, probably already planning to disappear. "Not this time," she said to her reflection in the glass. Her laptop chimed. David had sent his preliminary findings, faster than she'd expected. She opened the encrypted file and began to read. Jack Morrison, former Marine, served 2 tours in Afghanistan, decorated for valor, honorable discharge. Opened a karate dojo in Queens in 2015, teaching underprivileged kids for free alongside paying students. Married to Sarah Morrison, deceased 2018. One daughter, Emma, deceased 2019. Olivia's hand went to her mouth as she read the next part. Emma Morrison, age 7, killed by a drunk driver named Thomas Whitfield. Whitfield. The name was familiar. She did a quick search and her stomach turned. Thomas Whitfield, son of Senator James Whitfield, sentenced to 18 months probation and community service. The injustice of it burned through her like acid. A child was dead, and her killer got to walk free because of political connections. No wonder Jack had ended up on the streets. How did you continue living a normal life when the system had failed you so completely? She kept reading. After Emma's death, Jack had spiraled. Several arrests for assault, all against men with histories of domestic violence or child abuse. His dojo was foreclosed, his house repossessed, his wife's medical bills from her battle with cancer had already drained their savings, and Emma's death had broken what was left of him. The last known address was a homeless shelter in Brooklyn, dated 6 months ago. After that, nothing. Jack Morrison had effectively ceased to exist, becoming just another invisible casualty of a city that consumed the weak and celebrated the strong. But he wasn't weak. Olivia had seen that tonight. Broken, perhaps. Wounded, definitely. But not weak. Never that. She picked up her phone and made a call that would change everything, though she didn't know it yet. "Stephen, it's Olivia. I need a favor." Stephen Park was the best private investigator money could buy, which meant he was very expensive and very discreet. He also owed Olivia a debt that money couldn't repay. She'd saved his daughter's life by paying for an experimental cancer treatment when insurance wouldn't cover it. "At 2 in the morning, this must be important," Stephen said, sounding surprisingly alert. "I need you to find someone without them knowing they're being found, and I need you to do it by tomorrow night." "Does this someone have a name?" "Jack Morrison, ex-Marine, ex-dojo owner, current resident of nowhere in particular." "Homeless?" "Temporarily displaced," Olivia corrected. "And Stephen? This is personal." "Understood. I'll have something for you by tomorrow evening." After ending the call, Olivia remained at the window, watching the city pulse with its irregular heartbeat. She thought about the moment when Jack had stood between her and danger. No hesitation, no calculation of risk versus reward. He'd simply acted, as if protecting her was as natural as breathing. When was the last time someone had protected her without wanting something in return? Her security team was paid to do it. Her lawyers protected her interests for billable hours. Even her few friends, could she call them that, were always aware of what her wealth could do for them. But Jack had wanted nothing, had refused everything, had walked back to his spot by a dumpster as if saving a billionaire's life was just another Thursday night in the city. The puzzle of it wouldn't let her go. She'd built her empire by understanding people, what they wanted, what they feared, what they'd compromised to achieve their goals. But Jack Morrison didn't fit any of her models. He was a warrior who'd chosen to stop fighting, a protector who couldn't protect the one person who mattered most, a man who'd lost everything but somehow retained something she couldn't quite name. Honor, perhaps. That old-fashioned concept that modern society had largely discarded as inconvenient. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You were told this wasn't over. Your homeless friend won't always be around. Sell the building, or next time we won't be so gentle. C. The Calabrese family." They'd gotten her private number, which meant they had connections she hadn't anticipated. Most people would have been terrified. Olivia Sterling was not most people. She typed back, "Try it, see what happens." Then she made another call, this one to her head of development. "Patricia, I'm sorry to wake you, but I need you to fast-track something. The old Yamamoto dojo in Queens, do we still own that property?" "Let me check. Yes, it's been sitting vacant since we acquired the whole block last year. We were planning to demolish it for the new commercial complex. Change of plans. I want it renovated, top to bottom. And Patricia, make it perfect. Honor what it used to be." "Olivia, that will cost—" "I don't care what it costs. Just get it done." After ending the call, Olivia finally headed to bed, though she knew sleep would be elusive. Her mind was too full of plans, possibilities, and the image of a broken warrior standing in the rain, ready to fight for someone he didn't even know. Tomorrow, she would start repaying a debt that couldn't be measured in dollars. But first, she had to make sure Jack Morrison didn't disappear into the city's vast anonymity. She had a feeling that finding him would be easier than getting him to accept help. Warriors, she was learning, had their own kind of pride. As she drifted off to sleep, one thought persisted. In saving her, had Jack Morrison perhaps saved a piece of himself? And in finding him, might she discover something she'd lost along her own journey to the top? The questions would have to wait for tomorrow. But tomorrow, Olivia promised herself, would bring answers. Morning came too soon, bringing with it a dozen urgent messages and the familiar weight of running an empire. But for the first time in years, Olivia found herself eager to face the day. She had a purpose beyond acquisition and expansion, a mystery that engaged her in ways that hostile takeovers never could. She was going to find Jack Morrison. She was going to help him whether he wanted it or not. And maybe, just maybe, she'd find out why a man who'd lost everything had risked what little he had left to save her. The city waited below, full of its usual promises and threats. But today, Olivia Sterling saw it differently. Today, she saw it as a place where heroes could hide in plain sight, where honor could survive even the deepest losses, and where a chance encounter in a dark alley could change everything. Today, she began the search for a ghost who'd proved he was still very much alive. The search for Jack Morrison consumed the next 48 hours of Olivia's life in ways she hadn't anticipated. Stephen Park's initial reports came back frustratingly sparse. The man had become a ghost, moving through the city's forgotten spaces like smoke through fingers. Security footage from the alley that night showed only shadows and rain, the cameras mysteriously malfunctioning during the crucial moments. It was as if the city itself was protecting Jack's anonymity. Olivia stood in her office, studying a map of Manhattan that Stephen had marked with possible sighting locations. Red pins clustered around the financial district, but there were outliers. A soup kitchen in Chelsea, a public library in Midtown, a veterans shelter in the Bronx that Jack had visited once but never returned to. "He's smart," Stephen said, standing beside her. "Never stays in one place more than 2 nights. Never uses the same food source twice in a week. It's like he's running counter-surveillance, except there's no evidence anyone's actually looking for him." "Except us," Olivia pointed out. "Except us," Stephen agreed, "and we're having a hell of a time." Marcus entered the office, moving stiffly from his injuries but refusing to take medical leave. His replacement had lasted exactly 1 day before Olivia fired him for suggesting she was being paranoid about the Calabrese threat. "Ms. Sterling, there's been a development," Marcus said, his expression grim. "The 3 men from the alley, they've been found. Arrested. Dead." The word hung in the air like a physical presence. Olivia felt her blood turn cold. "All 3? Execution style. The police found them in a warehouse in Queens. The word on the street is that they failed their mission and paid the price." Olivia sank into her chair, the weight of the situation crushing down on her. Those men had been criminals, yes, but they'd been human beings. Their deaths were a message, written in blood. The Calabrese family didn't tolerate failure. "They'll send others," she said. Not a question, but a statement of fact. "Without doubt," Marcus confirmed. "We need to increase your security detail." "I've already contacted—" "No." Olivia stood up, decision crystallizing in her mind. "We're not playing defense anymore. Stephen, I need you to find Jack Morrison today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today." Stephen raised an eyebrow. "That's a tall order. The man clearly doesn't want to be found." "Then find someone he cares about. There has to be someone, something that still connects him to the world." Stephen pulled out his tablet, scrolling through his notes. "There might be something. The dojo where he trained, not the one he owned, but where he learned. It's in Chinatown, run by a master Yamamoto. Jack studied there from age 12 until he joined the Marines. Is Yamamoto still alive? 93 years old and still teaching, apparently, though his grandson runs most of the classes now." Olivia grabbed her coat. "We're going there. Now." The drive to Chinatown took them through the heart of Manhattan's contradictions. Gleaming towers giving way to older buildings, privilege sliding into working-class struggle. The new city built on the bones of the old. The Yamamoto Dojo occupied the 2nd floor of a narrow building squeezed between a dim sum restaurant and an herbal medicine shop. The stairs creaked under their feet as they climbed, each step taking them further from Olivia's world of corporate power into something older, more fundamental. The dojo itself was a surprise. Olivia had expected something run down, struggling. Instead, she found a space that, while simple, was immaculate. The wooden floor gleamed, polished by decades of bare feet. Weapons lined one wall, bow staffs, nunchaku sai, each in perfect condition. The air smelled of sweat and dedication, with an underlying note of sandalwood incense. A class was in session, about 20 students ranging from children to adults, all in white gis, moving through kata with synchronized precision. Leading them was an elderly Japanese man who moved with the fluid grace of someone who'd forgotten more about martial arts than most people would ever learn. Master Yamamoto noticed them immediately, though he gave no sign until the kata was complete. Then, with a few words in Japanese, he turned the class over to a younger instructor and approached them, his movements economical despite his age. "You are looking for Jack-san," he said without preamble. It wasn't a question. Olivia found herself bowing slightly, an automatic response to the man's presence. "Yes, Master Yamamoto. How did you know? When someone like you comes to a place like this, it is never for lessons." His eyes, dark and sharp despite his years, studied her with an intensity that made her feel transparent. "You are the woman from the alley. He told you?" "He tells me nothing, but I know my student, even when he tries to hide in shadows." Yamamoto gestured for them to follow him into a small office adjacent to the main floor. The walls were covered with photographs, students at tournaments, belt ceremonies, demonstrations. Olivia spotted Jack in several, younger, smiling, whole. "Jack-san was my finest student," Yamamoto said, settling onto a cushion with surprising flexibility. "Not the most naturally talented. That was another boy who quit after 2 years. But Jack understood something many never grasp. Karate is not about fighting. It is about protecting what matters." "His daughter," Olivia said softly. Yamamoto's expression darkened. Emma-chan was sunshine in human form. She would come here, sit in that corner, and watch her father teach. Sometimes she would join the children's class, though she was more interested in making the other students laugh than in learning kata. The old master stood and removed a framed photograph from the wall, handing it to Olivia. It showed Jack and his instructor's gi, Emma on his shoulders, both laughing at something off camera. The joy in the image was almost painful to witness, knowing what came after. "After she died, Jack-san came here once," Yamamoto continued. "He stood in the doorway for perhaps 5 minutes, watching a class. Then he left. That was 2 years ago. Do you know where he is now?" Yamamoto was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with something. Finally, he spoke. "There is a place. An old subway maintenance tunnel, abandoned for decades. Jack-san discovered it during his darker days, when he fought in underground matches to punish himself." "Underground fights?" Marcus interjected, concerned. "Not for money," Yamamoto clarified. "For pain. He sought to hurt as much on the outside as he did within. I tried to stop him, but grief makes us deaf to wisdom." The master wrote an address on a piece of paper, his calligraphy precise even in English. "If you go carefully. Jack-san is like a wounded wolf, dangerous when cornered, even to those trying to help." As they prepared to leave, Yamamoto spoke again. "Miss Sterling, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why do you seek him? He saved your life, yes, but debts of gratitude are easily paid with money sent to a shelter or charity in his name. Why pursue the man himself?" Olivia considered the question, surprised to find she didn't have a ready answer. In business, she always knew her motivations, could chart the path from action to profit. But this was different. "Because," she said finally, "I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who want something from me. Jack wanted nothing. He gave everything and asked for nothing. I need to understand that. And maybe I need to prove that such acts don't go unrecognized, that they matter." Yamamoto smiled, the expression transforming his stern features. "Then perhaps you understand more about karate than you know. Go well, Olivia Sterling. And when you find him, tell Jack-san that his sensei still believes in him." The maintenance tunnel was in a part of the city Olivia rarely saw. the industrial wasteland between Queens and Brooklyn, where the urban landscape became a maze of rust and concrete. The entrance was hidden behind a chain-link fence that had been carefully cut and bent back, invisible unless you knew where to look. Stephen had wanted to go in first, to scout, but Olivia refused. "He'll run if he sees strangers. It has to be me." "This is dangerous," Marcus protested. "At least let me—" "No. You all wait here. If I'm not back in an hour, then you can come looking." The tunnel descended at a gentle angle, the walls sweating condensation that had probably been accumulating for years. Olivia's designer shoes were completely inappropriate for the terrain, slipping on the wet concrete, but she pressed on. Emergency lighting, somehow still functional, cast everything in a sickly green glow. She heard him before she saw him, the rhythmic impact of fists against something solid. Following the sound, she found herself in a wider chamber, probably once used for storing maintenance equipment. Jack had transformed it into a makeshift training space. A heavy bag patched with duct tape hung from a rusted beam. Training equipment salvaged from who knows where lined one wall. And in the corner, a small living space, military neat despite the surroundings. Jack stood with his back to her, working the heavy bag with a combination of strikes that spoke of muscle memory so deep it had become instinct. He was shirtless, and Olivia could see the map of scars across his back. Some old, from his military service probably. Others newer, from his time on the streets. "I told you not to come looking," he said without turning around. "How did you know it was me?" "Your perfume. It costs more than most people make in a month. Hard to miss in a place like this." He landed a particularly vicious combination on the bag. "You should leave. Master Yamamoto sends his regards. He says he still believes in you." Jack's rhythm faltered just for a moment. "You spoke to Sensei? He helped me find you. He's worried about you." "He worries about everyone. It's his nature." Jack finally turned to face her, and Olivia had to suppress a gasp. His face bore new bruises, his lips split, one eye swollen nearly shut. "What happened to you?" "Tuesday night," he said with a shrug. "Some kids thought it would be fun to beat up a homeless guy. They learned otherwise. You need medical attention. I need you to leave me alone." But there was no real heat in the words, just exhaustion. Olivia stepped further into the space, noting the careful organization despite the squalor. A small shrine in one corner caught her attention. Emma's photograph surrounded by origami cranes, a child's drawing of a stick figure labeled Daddy, a purple belt that was far too small to have been Jack's. "She was beautiful," Olivia said softly. "Don't." The word came out sharp, dangerous. "I'm not here to pry into your pain, Jack. I'm here to offer you something." "I don't want your money." "Not money, a purpose." Jack laughed bitterly. "I had a purpose once. She died on a Tuesday afternoon while I was teaching a weapons class. Couldn't protect her from a drunk driver running a red light at 60 miles an hour. What purpose could you possibly offer that would matter after that?" "The chance to protect others." Olivia pulled out a folder she'd been carrying, laying it open on a makeshift table made from a door and concrete blocks. Inside were photographs and documents, children's faces, police reports, newspaper clippings. "These are kids from your old neighborhood," she said. "The ones who would have been your students if the dojo hadn't closed. In the 2 years since, 3 have joined gangs, 2 are in juvenile detention, 1 is dead from an overdose. They needed what you were teaching, not just the karate, but the discipline, the honor, the belief that they could be more than their circumstances." Jack stared at the photos, his hands clenching and unclenching unconsciously. "I bought your old building," Olivia continued. "I'm renovating it, restoring the dojo exactly as it was. But a building is just walls and floors without the right teacher. I'm not a teacher anymore. Your body says otherwise. You've been training down here, maintaining your skills. Why, if not because some part of you knows you're not done. Training is just habit. It doesn't mean anything. It meant something 3 nights ago in that alley." Jack's gaze snapped to hers. "That was different." "Was it? You saw someone in danger, and you acted. No hesitation, no calculation. You protected me because that's who you are, who you've always been. Emma knew it. Master Yamamoto knows it. The only one who doesn't seem to know it is you. You don't understand? Then help me understand." Olivia moved closer, close enough to see the pain etched in every line of his face. Help me understand how a man who dedicated his life to protecting others thinks he deserves to live in a tunnel. Help me understand how honoring your daughter's memory means giving up everything she loved about you. Jack turned away, but not before Olivia saw the moisture in his eyes. She thought I was a hero. She was wrong. No, she wasn't. I know because I was there when you proved it. You didn't know who I was in that alley, didn't know I had money or power or anything to offer. You just saw someone who needed help, and you helped. That's what heroes do. Heroes save their daughters. The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Olivia felt their edges, sharp and dangerous, and chose her next words carefully. My mother died when I was 8, she said. Cancer. My father spent every penny we had on treatments, sold everything, borrowed more. None of it mattered. She died anyway. He blamed himself, said if he'd been richer, smarter, faster to recognize the symptoms, she might have lived. He drank himself to death within 2 years. Jack looked at her, perhaps seeing her clearly for the first time. I spent years hating him for leaving me, Olivia continued, but eventually I realized something. His guilt didn't honor my mother's memory, it dishonored it. She wouldn't have wanted him to destroy himself. She would have wanted him to live, to find meaning, to make her proud. Emma wouldn't want this for you, Jack. You didn't know her. No, but I know she was raised by you. That tells me everything important about who she was. Jack was quiet for a long moment, staring at the small shrine. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I see her sometimes, walking past in a crowd, in the laugh of another child, in the way light falls through leaves. For just a second, I forget she's gone. Then I remember, and it's like losing her all over again. That never goes away, Olivia said gently. But you learn to carry it, and eventually you find ways to make that weight meaningful instead of just heavy. By teaching karate to kids? By being who Emma believed you were. By taking all that love and grief and turning it into something that helps others. By refusing to let Thomas Whitfield destroy 2 lives instead of 1. Jack's head snapped up at the mention of the name. You know about him? I know he got 18 months probation for killing your daughter. I know his father's political connections kept him out of prison. I know he's violated that probation twice with other DUIs, but nothing's been done about it. The system protects people like him. Usually, yes, but I'm very good at working around systems. Olivia pulled out another document. Thomas Whitfield currently owes $3 million to some very unpleasant people due to a gambling addiction his father doesn't know about. Those people recently sold that debt to a company I own through about 12 shell corporations. Would you like to know what I plan to do with that leverage? For the first time since she'd met him, Jack smiled. It was small, grim, but real. You're not what I expected from a billionaire. And you're not what I expected from a homeless man. Maybe we should both stop expecting and start doing something about it. Even if I wanted to teach again, I'm not the man I was. The kids would see that. They'd see a man who's been through hell and survived. Sometimes that's exactly the teacher they need. Olivia moved toward the entrance of the tunnel. I'm not asking for an answer now, but the dojo will be ready in 3 weeks. The door will be open. What you do with that is up to you. She was almost to the tunnel entrance when Jack called out, Why are you really doing this? Olivia turned back. Because in all my life, surrounded by wealth and power and people who claim to care about me, I've never felt as safe as I did when you stood between me and danger. That kind of protection can't be bought. It can only be given. And if you can give that to one person in an alley, imagine what you could give to dozens of kids who need it desperately. And if the Calabrese family comes after you again, then I'll handle them my way. But knowing you're out there, teaching kids to be strong, to protect others, to be what you are, that would make me feel safer than any security team ever could. Jack stood there, silhouetted against the dim light, looking like something out of a warrior's legend despite the setting. 3 weeks? 3 weeks. 1547 Queensbridge Avenue. The Yamamoto Morrison Dojo. Morrison? That's not... It's exactly right. Emma's name deserves to be on something that matters. Olivia left then, before he could respond, before the moment could break under the weight of too many words. Behind her, in the tunnel, Jack Morrison stood perfectly still, feeling something he hadn't experienced in 2 years. It wasn't quite hope. That was still too far away. But it was the absence of despair, and for now, that was enough. The walk back to where Marcus and Stephen waited felt like emerging from another world. The late afternoon sun seemed too bright, the normal city noises too loud. Olivia's phone had 17 missed calls, all marking crises that had seemed important an hour ago, but now felt trivial. "Did you find him?" Marcus asked. "I found him," Olivia confirmed. "Now we wait to see if he finds himself." Stephen was already on his phone, arranging something. When he hung up, he said, "I've got teams ready to watch the tunnel, make sure he's safe." "No," Olivia said firmly. "No surveillance, no protection he doesn't ask for. He needs to choose this freely or it means nothing." "The Calabrese family is my problem, not his." Olivia's phone rang. David Crenshaw, her lawyer. "Yes, David?" "Olivia, I've been trying to reach you. There's been a development. Vincent Calabrese wants a meeting." "The head of the family himself? Not one of his lieutenants?" "Him personally, tonight. He says it's about finding a mutually beneficial resolution." Olivia smiled coldly. "Set it up. His place or neutral ground, I don't care." "But David, make sure my updated will is filed before the meeting." "Olivia, that's not funny. I'm not joking. Also, contact the FBI. Tell them I have information about Thomas Whitfield they'll find very interesting, but only if something happens to me." "You're playing a dangerous game." "No, David. I'm ending one." The meeting was set for 9 p.m. at an Italian restaurant in Little Italy that existed in the gray area between legitimate business and criminal enterprise. Olivia arrived alone, despite Marcus's vehement protests. She wore a simple black dress and the kind of confidence that had crushed corporate opponents for a decade. Vincent Calabrese was waiting in a private room, accompanied by two men who looked like they bench-pressed small cars for fun. Vincent himself was smaller than she'd expected, neat and precise, with eyes that had seen too much and approved of most of it. "Ms. Sterling," he said, gesturing to a chair across from him. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Calabrese." She sat down, crossed her legs, and waited. In negotiations, the first person to speak usually lost. Vincent smiled, appreciating the tactic. "You're not what I expected." "I get that a lot lately." "My nephew and his friends. Their deaths? That wasn't my order." "But you're not exactly mourning them either." "They exceeded their instructions. In my business, as in yours, I imagine, discipline matters." He poured wine from a bottle that probably cost more than most people's rent. "The Hayworth building. You took something I considered mine." "You considered wrong. I bought it legally, above market price, from owners who were eager to sell." "Legal doesn't always mean right. Neither does illegal mean acceptable." Olivia leaned forward. "Let me be clear, Mr. Calabrese. I will not sell you the building. I will not be intimidated by you or your organization. And if you send anyone else after me, you'll discover that billionaires have their own kind of power, the kind that can make your life very complicated." Vincent's eyes narrowed. "You're threatening me?" "I'm informing you. There's a difference." She pulled out her phone, showed him a photograph. "Do you know who this is?" Vincent's face went pale. It was a picture of his grandson, age 7, at his private school. "I'm not threatening a child," Olivia said quickly. "I'm not you." "But that school? I own it now. Bought it yesterday. That park where he plays? I own the land. The hospital where your wife gets her dialysis? I'm now on the board. Your world, Mr. Calabrese, is about to become very small if you don't leave me alone." "You think money makes you untouchable?" "No, but it makes me dangerous in ways you're not prepared for. Your predecessor understood this. It's why the old families learned to coexist with people like me rather than fight us." Vincent was quiet for a moment, calculating. "And if I agree to leave you alone?" "Then we go back to ignoring each other's existence. The Hayworth building remains mine, but I'll make sure your construction company gets the renovation contract. Legitimate work, legitimate pay." "That's it?" "That's it. Peace is profitable, Mr. Calabrese. War is expensive, and not just in money." Vincent stood, and for a moment Olivia thought she'd miscalculated. Then he extended his hand. "You have spine, Ms. Sterling. In another life, you would have made a good addition to the family. In another life, Mr. Calabrese, You would have made a decent CEO. They shook hands, a deal sealed without lawyers or contracts, the old way that still meant something in certain circles. As Olivia left the restaurant, she felt the weight of the past few days settling on her shoulders. She'd faced down a crime family, found a broken warrior, and possibly set in motion something that could matter more than any acquisition or merger. But the real test would come in 3 weeks, when the dojo doors opened. Would Jack Morrison walk through them? 3 weeks passed with agonizing slowness for Olivia, each day bringing new reports from the renovation crew at the dojo. She threw herself into the project with an intensity that surprised even her closest associates, personally approving every detail from the type of wood for the floors to the exact shade of white for the GIs she'd ordered for future students. Patricia, her head of development, had stopped questioning the expenses after Olivia's third visit to the site, recognizing the look of someone on a mission that transcended profit margins. The morning the dojo was set to open, Olivia stood in the transformed space, breathing in the scent of fresh wood polish and new tatami mats. Sunlight streamed through windows that had been carefully restored to their original design, casting geometric patterns across the floor where Emma Morrison had once sat watching her father teach. The weapons wall had been rebuilt exactly as it had been, each implement placed according to photographs from Jack's teaching days. Even the small corner where Emma used to sit had been preserved, though Olivia had added something, a small plaque that read Emma's Corner, where champions learn to laugh. Master Yamamoto arrived first, moving through the space with the careful assessment of someone checking a student's form. He said nothing for several minutes, just walked and observed, occasionally running his fingers along the walls or testing the spring of the floor with a few quick movements. "You have done well, Sterling-san," he finally said, using the honorific for the first time. "This is not just restoration, this is resurrection." "But will he come?" Olivia asked, voicing the fear that had kept her awake for 3 nights straight. "A warrior's path is never straight," Yamamoto replied, which wasn't really an answer at all. By noon, a small crowd had gathered. Word had spread through the old neighborhood that the dojo was reopening, and parents who remembered Jack had come to see if the rumors were true. Some brought their children, kids who looked at the space with the kind of hunger that came from having too few positive options in their lives. Marcus stood near the entrance, trying to blend in despite looking exactly like what he was. Expensive security in a place where expensive anything was viewed with suspicion. 1 o'clock came and went, then 2. Olivia tried not to check her phone obsessively, tried not to let her disappointment show. She'd been so certain that Jack would come, that the pull of teaching, of honoring Emma's memory through action rather than grief, would be enough to draw him back. A woman approached her, middle-aged with tired eyes but a warm smile. "Excuse me, are you the one who rebuilt this place?" "Yes," Olivia replied, forcing her attention to the present. "My son trained here with Mr. Morrison before it closed." "Roberto. He's 15 now, running with the wrong crowd because there's nowhere else to go. Is it true Mr. Morrison might come back?" Before Olivia could answer, a commotion at the entrance drew everyone's attention. 3 teenage boys had entered, their posture aggressive, wearing colors that marked them as members of the East Side Kings, a gang that had claimed this territory after the dojo closed. "Yo, this our block," the leader announced, barely 17 but already carrying himself with the practiced menace of someone twice his age. "Nobody sets up here without paying rent." Marcus started to move, but Olivia held up a hand, stopping him. This was a test, she realized, though she wasn't sure who was being tested. "This is a dojo," she said calmly, "a place of learning and discipline. It doesn't pay rent to anyone." The boy laughed, pulling up his shirt to reveal the handle of a gun. "Lady, you don't know how things work around here. This fancy renovation? That makes you a target. You pay us for protection, or things get broken, starting with you." The crowd had gone silent, parents pulling their children back, everyone recognizing the familiar script of intimidation that ruled too many neighborhoods. Olivia felt the weight of their resignation, the acceptance that this was just how things were. Then a voice came from the doorway, quiet, but carrying the kind of authority that made everyone turn. "The only thing that's going to get broken is your illusion that you're tough." Jack Morrison stood in the entrance, but this wasn't the broken man from the tunnel. He'd shaved, cut his hair, and wore a simple black gi that made him look like what he was, a master of violence who chose not to use it. His presence filled the room in a way that had nothing to do with his physical size and everything to do with the energy he carried. The gang leader's hand moved toward his weapon, but Jack was already moving, covering the distance between them in 3 quick steps. His hand clamped down on the boy's wrist before he could draw the gun, applying pressure that made the teenager's eyes water. "First lesson," Jack said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "A weapon doesn't make you strong. It reveals your weakness." He twisted slightly, and the gun clattered to the floor. Jack kicked it away without looking. Second lesson. True strength is knowing when not to fight. The other 2 gang members started forward, but Jack's gaze stopped them cold. "You want to jump me? 3-on-1? Go ahead. But know this, I've got nothing left to lose, which makes me the most dangerous person you'll ever meet." Or, he paused, releasing the leader's wrist. "You can walk out of here, spread the word that this dojo is off limits, and maybe learn something that will keep you alive past 20. The leader rubbed his wrist, pride warring with survival instinct. "You're crazy, old man." "Probably," Jack agreed. "But I'm also the person offering you a choice. Most people in your life won't do that. They'll just shoot you or arrest you. I'm offering you something different." "What?" "A way out." Jack gestured to the dojo. "You come here, you train, you learn discipline. Not just fighting, discipline. The kind that makes you more than your circumstances. We don't need no Karate Kid bullshit." Roberto did. The woman who'd approached Olivia earlier gasped. "You remember him?" Jack turned to her, and his expression softened. "Mrs. Vega, Roberto was one of my best students. Quick learner, good heart. I heard he's been struggling since the dojo closed." "He joined the Kings 6 months ago," she admitted, tears in her eyes. "I couldn't stop him." Jack looked back at the gang leader. "Roberto Vega is one of yours?" "Yeah, so he was mine first, and I'm taking him back." Jack pulled out a phone, a flip phone that looked like it had survived a war. "Call him. Tell him his sensei wants to see him." "I don't take orders from—" "Call him," Jack repeated, and something in his voice made it clear this wasn't a request. The leader made the call, speaking in rapid Spanish, clearly unsettled. Within 10 minutes, Roberto Vega arrived, and the change in him from the eager student in the old photographs to the hardened teenager he'd become was heartbreaking. But when he saw Jack, something flickered in his eyes. Shame, maybe, or hope. "Sensei?" Roberto's voice cracked on the word. "You came back?" "The question is whether you will," Jack said. "The dojo is open again. Your spot in the advanced class is waiting, but you come as a student, not as a king. You can't be both." "The kings don't let people just leave," the leader interjected. Jack smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "They do now. This dojo is neutral ground. Anyone who trains here is under my protection. You have a problem with that, you take it up with me personally. And trust me, you don't want to do that." The gang leader looked around the room, saw the parents watching with a mixture of fear and hope, saw Master Yamamoto standing perfectly still but somehow radiating menace despite his age, saw Olivia Sterling, whose presence here made no sense unless there was more to this story than he understood. "This is crazy," he muttered, but he was already backing toward the door. "Life is crazy," Jack agreed. "The question is what kind of crazy you choose, the kind that ends with you dead or in prison by 25, or the kind that gives you a chance at something more." After the gang left, taking their toxic energy with them, the atmosphere in the dojo shifted. Parents moved forward, children peered out from behind their mother's legs, and Roberto Vega stood frozen between worlds, looking like he might bolt at any second. "Roberto," Jack said gently, "show me your kata. Let's see what you remember." I haven't practiced in 2 years, Sensei." "Then we'll start with what you know and build from there. That's what we do here. We build from where we are, not from where we wish we were." Roberto moved to the center of the floor, awkward in his street clothes, and began the first kata he'd learned. His form was rusty, his balance off, but the foundation was there. Jack watched, occasionally calling out corrections, and slowly Roberto's movements became more confident, more precise. By the end, he was crying, though he tried to hide it. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, Saturday mornings, Jack announced to the room. Classes are free for those who can't pay, subsidized for those who can pay something, full price for those who can afford it. Everyone trains together, no economic segregation. First class is tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. sharp. Bring water, wear comfortable clothes. G's will be provided for those who commit to 3 months of training. The crowd began to disperse, parents exchanging phone numbers, making plans to bring their children. Roberto lingered, clearly torn between his old life and this unexpected opportunity for redemption. "Sensei," he said quietly, "the kings, they won't just let this go. They'll come back." "Let them," Jack replied. "I've faced worse than street thugs with delusions of grandeur." After Roberto left, promising to return tomorrow, Jack and Olivia found themselves alone in the dojo except for Master Yamamoto, who was examining the weapons wall with apparent fascination, despite certainly having seen every item on it before. "You came," Olivia said simply. "Did you doubt I would?" "Every single day for 3 weeks." Jack walked to Emma's corner, running his fingers over the plaque Olivia had installed. "She would have liked this," he said softly. The idea that her spot could inspire other kids to find joy and strength. That was the hope. Hope, Jack repeated the word like he was tasting something foreign. I'd forgotten what that felt like. And now? He turned to face her, and Olivia saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Not peace exactly, but the possibility of it. Now I have work to do. These kids need more than just karate lessons. They need to believe they can be more than their circumstances. Like you were? Like I was trying to be before I lost my way. He paused, studying her. You orchestrated all of this, didn't you? Not just the renovation, but the timing, the gang showing up, even Roberto's mother being here. Olivia tried to look innocent and failed completely. I may have spread word through certain channels about the reopening, and I may have known the kings would show up to establish dominance, but I didn't know you'd come. Yes, you did. You knew I couldn't let them destroy this place before it even had a chance. You played me. I motivated you. There's a difference. Master Yamamoto's quiet laughter drew their attention. You two are well matched in stubbornness, the old master observed. It will be interesting to see what comes of this partnership. There's no partnership, Jack said quickly. Ms. Sterling rebuilt the dojo, and I'm grateful, but nothing, Olivia interrupted. You need funding to keep this place running. I need to know my investment is being used properly. That means regular reports, meetings, and yes, a partnership. Unless you prefer to handle the business side yourself, taxes, insurance, liability waivers, equipment procurement, marketing. Jack held up his hands in surrender. Point taken. But I run the classes my way. Agreed, with one condition. Which is? You teach me. Both men stared at her. You want to learn karate? Jack asked, clearly skeptical. I want to learn to protect myself. What happened in that alley? I never want to feel that helpless again. You could hire the best teachers in the world. I did. I hired you. Jack shook his head, but there was a hint of a smile. You're used to getting what you want, aren't you? Usually, but this isn't about what I want. It's about what I need, and what you need, whether you'll admit it or not. And what do I need? To teach someone who reminds you that strength isn't just about fighting off physical threats. It's about facing down boardrooms full of hostile executives, about building something from nothing, about refusing to let fear determine your limits. You think you can teach me that? I think we can teach each other. You show me how to defend my body, I'll show you how to rebuild your life. Fair trade? Master Yamamoto moved toward the door. I'll leave you two to sort out the details. Jack-san, it's good to have you back. Don't waste this second chance. After the old master left, Jack and Olivia stood in the quiet dojo, afternoon light painting long shadows across the floor. The space felt alive with possibility, with the ghost of what had been and the promise of what could be. Private lessons are Tuesday and Thursday mornings, before the dojo opens, Jack said finally. 6 a.m. sharp. You're late. You don't train. You complain. You don't train. You bring your phone into the training area. You don't train. Understood. And Olivia? It was the first time he'd used her first name. Thank you for all of this, for not letting me disappear into the darkness. You saved my life, Jack. And you're saving mine, though I suspect you knew that would happen all along. Olivia's phone buzzed with messages from her office, crises that needed her attention, deals that required her input. For once, she ignored them all. I'm a businesswoman. I invest in things with potential for growth. You, Jack Morrison, have more potential than any acquisition I've ever made. I'm not a corporation to be turned around. No, she agreed. You're something much more valuable. You're proof that sometimes the best investments aren't in buildings or businesses, but in people who've forgotten their own worth. Jack walked to the center of the dojo, assuming a ready stance that looked as natural as breathing. First lesson, then. Show me your fighting stance. Olivia kicked off her designer heels, feeling the cool wood under her feet, grounding her in a way her penthouse office never did. She tried to mimic Jack's posture, knowing she looked ridiculous but not caring. No, Jack said, moving behind her, adjusting her shoulders, her hips, the angle of her feet. His touch was clinical, professional, but Olivia felt something shift in the air between them, some recognition that they were two damaged people trying to find their way back to wholeness. Better, he said, stepping back. Now, the first thing you need to understand about karate is that it's not about attacking. It's about creating options. Every stance, every movement is about positioning yourself to have choices. The person with the most options usually wins. Sounds like business. Everything is business, and business is everything. The principles are universal: leverage, positioning, timing, knowing when to strike and when to wait. They trained for an hour, Jack teaching her basic blocks and stances while explaining the philosophy behind each movement. Olivia was a quick learner, her body remembering athletic training from college, her mind grasping the strategic elements immediately. When they finally stopped, she was sweating through her designer dress and felt more alive than she had in years. Same time Thursday? She asked, gathering her things. I'm serious about everything, Jack. It's my blessing and my curse. As she reached the door, he called out, Olivia? The Calabrese family, are they really backing off? She turned back, surprised. How did you know about that? I still have contacts from my Marine days. Word gets around when someone faces down Vincent Calabrese and wins. I didn't win. I negotiated a draw. In that world, a draw is a win, but they'll be watching for any sign of weakness. Then it's good I'm learning to be strong. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm that surprised everyone, including Jack and Olivia themselves. The dojo filled with students, not just kids from the neighborhood, but adults too, people who'd heard about the master who'd faced down the kings and lived to teach about it. Roberto became Jack's assistant instructor, his transformation from gang member to leader, inspiring others to believe change was possible. Olivia's private lessons evolved from simple self-defense into something more complex. Jack taught her not just how to fight, but how to think like a warrior, constant awareness, strategic positioning, the economy of movement that turned every action into potential advantage. In return, she helped him navigate the business side of running the dojo, taught him about cash flow and sustainability, about building something that could last beyond the initial enthusiasm. They were an odd pair, the billionaire and the warrior, the corporate queen and the broken sensei. But somehow it worked. Olivia found in the dojo a simplicity that cut through the complexity of her corporate life, a place where success was measured in perfected techniques and childhood laughter rather than stock prices and acquisition targets. Jack found in Olivia's relentless optimism a counterweight to his grief, her refusal to accept defeat in any form slowly chipping away at the walls he'd built around his heart. One Thursday morning, 6 weeks after the dojo reopened, Olivia arrived to find Jack sitting in Emma's corner, holding a letter. What's that? She asked, setting down her gear. A thank you note from Roberto's mother. Her son hasn't just left the gang, he's back in school talking about college. Jack's voice was thick with emotion. She says I saved his life. You did? No, we did. This place, this chance, it wouldn't exist without you. Olivia sat down beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. It wouldn't matter without you. A dojo is just a building. A sensei makes it a place of transformation. Is Is that what we're doing here? Transforming? Every day. The kids, the community, ourselves, especially ourselves. Jack was quiet for a moment, then said, Emma would have been 9 this week. Tell me about her. And he did. For the first time since her death, Jack talked about his daughter, not with grief, but with joy, sharing stories of her first attempts at kata, her insistence on wearing her purple belt to school, even though it didn't match her uniform, her belief that her father's karate could fix anything from skinned knees to broken hearts. She was right, you know, Olivia said when he finished. Your karate did fix things. It fixed that night in the alley. It's fixing Roberto and the other kids. It's fixing... She paused, then continued more quietly. It's fixing me. You weren't broken. Wasn't I? I had everything except the ability to feel safe, to trust that someone would stand between me and danger without calculating the cost. You gave me that. And you gave me a reason to continue Emma's legacy in a way that honors her joy, not just my grief. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the morning sun paint patterns across the dojo floor. The space that had once held such pain for Jack had become something else. Not a monument to loss, but a testament to resilience, to the possibility of building something beautiful from broken pieces. I should tell you something, Olivia said eventually. Thomas Whitfield was arrested yesterday. The FBI found evidence of multiple DUI violations and tax evasion related to covering them up. He's looking at serious prison time. Jack absorbed this information without visible reaction. You did that? I provided information. The justice system did the rest eventually. It won't bring her back. No, but it might prevent him from taking someone else's child. That's something. It's everything, Jack corrected. Thank you. We should train, Olivia said, standing and offering him a hand up. You're teaching me that spinning kick today, right? You're not ready for that. I'm a fast learner. You're stubborn. That too. Jack took her hand, allowing her to help him to his feet, even though they both knew he didn't need it. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about how far they'd both come. The warrior who'd learned to accept help, the billionaire who'd learned to offer it without expectation of return. They moved to the center of the dojo, assuming their fighting stances, but something had shifted between them. The professional distance that had characterized their early lessons had given way to something warmer, more personal. When Jack adjusted Olivia's stance now, his hands lingered a moment longer than necessary. When she successfully executed a difficult combination, the pride in his eyes was about more than just her technical improvement. Focus, Jack said, but he was smiling. I am focused. On the technique, not on... He paused, catching himself. On what? Olivia challenged, raising an eyebrow. On whatever it is that's making you smile like that. Maybe I'm just happy. Is that allowed in the dojo? Emma always said the dojo should be a happy place, Jack admitted. She said people fought better when they were joyful than when they were angry. Smart girl. The smartest. They continued training, but the atmosphere had changed, charged with possibility neither of them quite ready to acknowledge. Outside, the city was waking up, the sounds of traffic and commerce filtering through the windows. But inside the dojo, in this space carved out of time and transformed by will and hope, two people who'd saved each other in different ways moved through ancient forms, finding in the discipline of combat a path towards something that looked suspiciously like peace. The change in their relationship happened gradually, like dawn breaking over the city, imperceptible at first, then undeniable. 3 months after the dojo's reopening, Olivia arrived for her morning lesson to find Jack already in motion, working through an advanced kata she'd never seen before. His movements were fluid poetry, each strike and block flowing into the next with a grace that made violence look like art. She stood in the doorway, transfixed, watching him move through space as if he were conducting an orchestra only he could hear. When he finished, breathing hard but centered, he turned to find her watching. You're early, he said, but there was warmth in his observation. You're beautiful, she replied without thinking, then felt heat rise to her cheeks. I mean, the kata. The form was beautiful. Jack studied her for a moment, something shifting in his expression. It was Emma's favorite to watch. She said it looked like dancing. She was right. Olivia entered the dojo, removing her shoes with the reverence the space deserved. Will you teach it to me? It's a black belt form. You're not ready. I'm never ready according to you, but I keep surprising you anyway. That drew a smile from him, the kind that transformed his face from warrior to something softer, more accessible. Fair point, but this one is different. It requires perfect balance between power and grace, aggression and restraint. It's about finding harmony in opposition. Sounds like my entire life, Olivia said, moving to stand beside him. Show me. For the next hour, Jack broke down the complex form into manageable sequences, his hands guiding her through each transition. There was an intimacy to it that went beyond their usual training. The way he stood behind her to demonstrate the arm movements, his chest against her back, his breath warm on her neck as he counted out the rhythm. When she stumbled on a particularly difficult turn, he caught her, his arms around her waist, holding her steady for a moment longer than balance required. Again, he said, but his voice had gone rough. She tried the sequence again, hyper-aware of his presence, the way he moved with her like a shadow, ready to correct or catch as needed. This time she nailed it, the movement clicking into place with a satisfaction that was almost physical. Yes, she exclaimed, turning to face him, and found him closer than expected, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, close enough to smell the sandalwood soap he used. You're a quick study, he said quietly. I have an excellent teacher. They stood there, frozen in a moment that felt like standing on a precipice. Then Jack stepped back, the professional distance sliding back into place like armor. That's enough for today, he said. You should get to your office. Jack, please, Olivia, not yet. The yet hung between them, a promise or a warning, she wasn't sure which. She gathered her things, confused and frustrated by the push and pull of whatever was building between them. There's something else, Jack said as she reached the door. I got a call yesterday, from someone claiming to represent your interests. Olivia turned back, frowning. I haven't sent anyone. I know. That's why I'm telling you. They wanted information about you, about your schedule here, your training progress. I told them nothing and hung up, but someone's watching. Olivia's mind immediately went to the Calabrese family, but Vincent had been true to his word so far, their agreement holding. Did they give a name? Richardson. Said he was from Richardson Security Consultants. The blood drained from Olivia's face. Richardson Security was a firm she'd specifically rejected for her personal protection contract 3 years ago when she'd discovered their tendency to sell information to the highest bidder. If they were sniffing around, I need to make some calls, she said, already pulling out her phone. Is there danger? The concern in Jack's voice made her pause. I don't know, maybe. I've made enemies over the years. Hostile takeovers don't exactly win popularity contests. You should have additional security. I have you, she said without thinking, then realized how it sounded. For training, I mean. The skills you're teaching me. Skills take time to develop. You need protection now. Then protect me, she challenged. Isn't that what you do? Protect people? Jack's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Isn't it? You protected me once without knowing anything about me. Now we're... She paused, searching for the right word. Friends? Partners? Whatever we are, doesn't that mean something? It means everything, Jack said quietly. Which is why I can't be your bodyguard. It's too personal now. Personal Cloud's judgment makes you vulnerable. Or it makes you more invested in keeping me safe. Before he could respond, her phone rang. David Crenshaw's name on the screen. David, I was just about to call you. Olivia, we have a problem. Malcolm Sterling is back. The name hit her like a physical blow. Malcolm Sterling, her stepbrother, who'd been in Switzerland for the past 5 years, following his failed attempt to take over Sterling Industries after their father's death. The lawsuit had been brutal, public, and had ended with Malcolm losing all claims to the company but walking away with a substantial settlement, money Olivia had paid just to make him disappear. That's impossible. The non-compete clause expired last month. He's already set up a rival firm and is actively courting your clients. Olivia, he's coming for everything you've built. She ended the call and found Jack watching her with concern. My stepbrother, she explained. He tried to steal the company once before. Apparently he's back for round two. This is the real danger, isn't it? Not the Calabrese family, but your own family. Malcolm isn't family. He's a parasite who happened to share a dinner table with me for 5 years after his mother married my father. Olivia's voice had gone cold, corporate. I need to go. Your lesson isn't over. Yes, it is. I have a war to prepare for. Olivia, Jack's voice stopped her at the door. In battle, the warrior who lets emotion drive strategy has already lost. Whatever this Malcolm did to you, whatever he represents, you can't face him with anger. Then how do I face him? With clarity, with purpose, with the knowledge that you've already beaten him once. Jack moved closer, his presence steadying. Tomorrow morning we train as usual, but we'll focus on mental discipline, not physical techniques. If you're going to war, you need a warrior's mind. And if I need more than that, then you ask for help. From me, from others. Warriors don't fight alone, Olivia. They fight as part of something larger. She wanted to kiss him then, this man who saw through her armor to the fear beneath, who offered strength without making her feel weak. Instead, she nodded and left, carrying the warmth of his concern with her into the cold corporate battle ahead. Malcolm Sterling had set up his operations in a building 6 blocks from Sterling Industries, a deliberate provocation that Olivia couldn't ignore. By afternoon, she had a complete intelligence report on his activities. He'd poached 3 of her junior executives with promises of partnership positions, had scheduled meetings with her top 5 clients, and had somehow gotten his hands on internal Sterling Industries documents that should have been confidential. He has someone inside, Marcus said, standing in her office as she reviewed the data. There's no other way he could know about the Hayworth building's true profit margins or the timeline for the Singapore expansion. Find them, Olivia said coldly. Quietly. I want to know who betrayed me before I decide how to respond. And Malcolm himself? Set up a meeting, neutral ground. Let's see what he actually wants. The meeting was arranged for that evening at a private club in Midtown, the kind of place where powerful people made deals that shaped the city's skyline. Olivia arrived to find Malcolm already waiting, and the sight of him brought back memories she'd spent years trying to bury. He looked good, she had to admit. 5 years in Switzerland had given him a European polish, his suit perfectly tailored, his sandy hair artfully styled, but his eyes were the same, cold, calculating, with that hint of cruelty that had made her childhood a minefield after his mother's marriage to her father. Sister, he said, rising with mock courtesy, we're not family, Malcolm. We never were. Father seemed to think differently, though I notice you kept his name while erasing every other trace of his existence from the company. I kept what was worth keeping and discarded the rest, rather like what the board did with your claim to the inheritance. Malcolm's smile tightened. That was 5 years ago. I've learned a great deal since then. Such as? That you can't buy loyalty, but you can certainly rent it. Your CFO, for instance, Patricia Chen, lovely woman. Did you know her daughter just got into Harvard Medical School? Terribly expensive, those Ivy League educations. Olivia kept her expression neutral, even as her heart sank. Patricia had been with her for 6 years, had been part of building everything. You're paying for her daughter's education in exchange for information? Among other things, the question is, what are you willing to pay to make me go away again? Nothing. You have nothing I want. Don't I? Malcolm pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. The real Sterling Industries financial records. Not the sanitized versions you show the board, but the actual numbers. The creative accounting that makes your profit margins look better than they are. The offshore accounts that hide certain transactions. All perfectly legal, of course, but imagine how your clients would react if they knew the truth about your stability. Olivia didn't touch the folder. You're talking about destroying a company that employs 12,000 people because of a childhood grudge? I'm talking about taking what should have been mine. Father built that company for his children, all his children. He built it for someone who could run it. That wasn't you 5 years ago, and it isn't you now. We'll see about that. Malcolm stood, buttoning his jacket. You have 48 hours to consider a buyout. Sell me Sterling Industries for half its market value, or I release everything. Your clients will run, your board will demand your resignation, and everything you've built will crumble, just like you made my life crumble when you turned father against me. I didn't turn him against you, Malcolm. Your embezzlement did that. Oh yes, she added, seeing his surprise. I know about the money you stole from the company accounts. Father knew, too. He just chose to handle it quietly to protect your mother from the shame. You can't prove anything. I don't need to. I just need you to know, that I've always known, and that if you want to play this game, I have ammunition too. Malcolm's composure cracked slightly. You always were too clever for your own good. But cleverness won't save you this time. 48 hours, Olivia. After he left, Olivia sat alone in the private room, staring at the folder he'd left behind. She opened it finally, scanning the documents, recognizing Patricia's fingerprints all over the leaked information. The betrayal hurt more than she'd expected. Patricia had been more than an employee. She'd been a friend, or so Olivia had thought. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jack. Training still on for tomorrow? She typed back, Yes. I need it more than ever. His response was immediate. Whatever you're facing, you don't face it alone. The simple message made her eyes burn with unshed tears. When had she become so isolated that a text about not being alone could affect her this deeply? She made her way home, her mind already working through strategies and counter-strategies. But when she arrived at her penthouse, she found an unexpected visitor waiting in the lobby, Master Yamamoto, looking impossibly small and ancient in the modern setting. Sterling-san, he said with a slight bow. We must speak. She brought him up to her apartment, served him tea in the traditional manner he'd taught her during one of their conversations at the dojo. He sipped it slowly, studying her with those penetrating eyes. You are troubled, he observed. Business complications. No, this is personal. Someone has betrayed you. How do you... She stopped herself. After 93 years of reading people, Yamamoto probably saw things others missed. Jack-san cares for you, the old master said, seemingly changing subjects. More than he admits, perhaps more than he knows. We're friends, partners in the dojo. You are whatever you tell yourselves you are, but the heart knows its own truth. He set down his teacup with precise movements. I did not come to speak of romance, however. I came to warn you. The man you met with tonight, I have seen his type before. They do not fight with honor. They attack from shadows, use others' weaknesses as weapons. You're telling me to be careful. I'm telling you that sometimes the way to defeat an enemy who fights without honor is to remind them what honor looks like. Your stepbrother expects you to fight him with his weapons, blackmail, betrayal, corporate maneuvering. What if you fought with different weapons entirely? Such as? Truth. Transparency. The kind of strength that comes not from hidden leverage but from open integrity. Yamamoto stood, his movements fluid despite his age. In karate, we teach that the strongest position is one where you have nothing to defend because you've already acknowledged your vulnerabilities. Consider this in your battle. After he left, Olivia stood at her windows, looking out at the city lights, thinking about his words. Truth as a weapon, transparency as strength. It went against everything she'd learned in business, where information was power and secrets were currency. Her phone rang. Patricia Chen. Olivia. Her CFO's voice was strained. We need to talk. Yes, we do. My office tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. I can explain. I'm sure you can. 8 a.m., Patricia. She ended the call and made another, this one to David Crenshaw. David, I need you to prepare something for me. A complete financial disclosure document for Sterling Industries, everything. The creative accounting, the offshore structures, all of it. Olivia, that's corporate suicide. Maybe. Or maybe it's the only way to win a fight against someone who thinks secrets are weapons. This is about Malcolm. This is about ending him once and for all. But first, I need to know, is there anything in our financials that's actually illegal? No, nothing illegal, aggressive perhaps, creative certainly, but legal. Then prepare the documents, full disclosure. And David, set up a press conference for 47 hours from now. You're going to make this public? I'm going to burn down everything Malcolm thinks he can use against me. Can't blackmail someone with information they've already released. The next morning, Olivia arrived at the dojo at 5:30, needing the physical outlet before facing Patricia. She found Jack already there, but he wasn't alone. Roberto was with him, working through advanced combinations with an intensity that spoke of hours of practice. Roberto's testing for his black belt next month, Jack explained. He wanted extra training. Olivia watched the young man move, seeing in him the same transformation she'd witnessed in Jack, someone who'd found purpose in discipline, strength in structure. Sensei says you're learning fast, Roberto said during a water break. Says you got the warrior spirit. He's being generous, Olivia replied. No, Jack corrected. I'm being accurate. Roberto, give us the room. After the young man left, Jack faced Olivia. You didn't sleep. That obvious? You're holding tension in your shoulders. Your stance is defensive before we've even started. He moved behind her, his hands working at the knots in her shoulders. Want to talk about it? She told him everything. Malcolm's threats, Patricia's betrayal, her plan to go fully transparent before Malcolm could use the information against her. It's risky, Jack said when she finished. You're essentially performing surgery on yourself in public. Better than letting him do it. Or, Jack turned her to face him, his hands still on her shoulders. You could let some of us help carry this. You have allies, Olivia. Use them. This is my fight. No fight is ever just yours when you have people who care about you. The weight of his words, the implication in them, made her breath catch. Jack, I know what I said yesterday, about it being too personal, but I was wrong. It's personal that makes us fight harder, care more, refuse to give up. Emma was personal. That's why losing her almost destroyed me. But you, he paused, seeming to search for words. You're personal too, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. What are you saying? I'm saying that when you face Malcolm, you won't face him alone. I'm saying that Patricia betrayed you, but not everyone will. I'm saying that He stopped, cupped her face in his hands. I'm saying that somewhere between that night in the alley and this morning in this dojo, you became essential to me. Jack. He kissed her, soft at first, then deeper as she responded. It was a kiss that acknowledged all the broken places in both of them, all the scar tissue and armor, and found beauty in the damage. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. I'm not good at this, Jack said. I haven't been with anyone since Sarah died. I don't know how to be what you need. You already are, Olivia said. You're the person who sees me clearly and doesn't run. That's everything. They trained then, but it was different, charged with new awareness, with possibilities acknowledged if not fully explored. Every contact carried weight. Every correction was a caress. Every successfully executed technique was celebrated with touches that lingered. When Olivia finally left for her office, she felt centered in a way she hadn't in days. Whatever happened with Malcolm, with Patricia, with the company, she wouldn't face it alone. Patricia was already waiting when Olivia arrived, looking haggard, older than her 52 years. She stood when Olivia entered, a folder clutched in her hands. I brought everything, Patricia said without preamble. Every document I gave Malcolm, every piece of information I shared, and my resignation. Olivia sat behind her desk, studying the woman she'd trusted. Why? My daughter, medical school, but it's more than that. Patricia sank into a chair. Malcolm found out about the affair I had 3 years ago. My husband doesn't know. He threatened to tell him, to destroy my marriage along with my daughter's future. So you chose to destroy my company instead? I thought I could control it, limit the damage, give him just enough to make him go away. Patricia laughed bitterly. I should have known better. People like Malcolm don't go away. They just demand more. No, Olivia agreed. They don't go away. That's why I'm going to destroy him. The press conference David mentioned, you're really going to do it? Full disclosure? Every creative accounting method, every aggressive tax strategy, everything Malcolm thinks he can use against me. It'll cost you millions in market value. But it'll cost him everything. His entire plan depends on having information I don't want public. Take that away and he has nothing. Patricia set her resignation on the desk. I know I have no right to ask, but I'm not accepting your resignation. What? You betrayed me, yes, but you also came clean when you could have stayed silent. Malcolm probably promised you a position in his new company, but you're here instead. Olivia leaned forward. I'm going to give you a choice, Patricia. You can leave, take your resignation and never look back. Or you can stay, help me win this fight, and earn back the trust you broke. Why would you? Because I believe in second chances. I've seen what they can do. Olivia thought of Jack, of Roberto, of the kids at the dojo learning that their past didn't define their futures. But if you stay, you work to earn redemption. You stand beside me at that press conference. You own your part in this, and you help me rebuild whatever we lose. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. I'll stay. I'll do whatever it takes. Good. Then let's get to work. We have 36 hours to prepare for corporate seppuku. The next day and a half passed in a blur of preparation. Olivia worked with her team to craft the perfect message: admission without apology, transparency without weakness. She brought in her major clients personally, explaining what was coming, why she was doing it, assuring them that Sterling Industries' fundamental strength remained unchanged. Some walked away, but more stayed than she'd expected. Vincent Calabrese, surprisingly, was one of the first to call with support. You've got stones, Ms. Sterling, he said, with what sounded like genuine admiration. Making yourself bulletproof by taking the bullets yourself. That's old school. I respect that. Jack came to her office the night before the press conference, bringing Chinese food and his quiet strength. You ready for this? He asked, watching her pace her office like a caged predator. I'm ready to end it, to stop looking over my shoulder for Malcolm's next move. That's not what I asked. She stopped pacing, really looked at him. He'd dressed up for him, dark jeans, a button-down shirt that brought out his eyes. He looked like what he was, a warrior in civilian clothing, dangerous and safe at the same time. I'm terrified, she admitted. I've built my entire life on controlling information, managing perception. Tomorrow I give all that up. No, Jack corrected. Tomorrow you trade control for freedom. There's a difference. What if I lose everything? Then you rebuild. You've done it before. When? When you were 8 and your mother died. When your father followed her. When Malcolm tried to take your company the first time. You're a survivor, Olivia. Tomorrow is just another battle. Will you be there? Front row. Roberto, too, and Master Yamamoto. Your corporate board might not understand what you're doing, but your dojo family does. My dojo family, Olivia repeated, liking the sound of it. Is that what we are? Among other things, Jack said, pulling her close. We're many things, Olivia Sterling. Warrior and student, teacher and CEO, broken people helping each other heal. Tomorrow, we add another title. Winners. You sound very certain. I am. You know why? Why? Because I've seen you fight. In an alley, in a boardroom, in the dojo. You don't know how to lose, even when you're afraid. Especially when you're afraid. The press conference was scheduled for 2 o'clock, but by noon the lobby of Sterling Industries was already packed with reporters. Word had leaked that something major was happening, though no one knew exactly what. Olivia stood in her office, looking down at the gathering crowd, wearing the armor of corporate power. A black Chanel suit that cost more than most people's cars, her mother's pearl necklace that she only wore for the most important battles. Patricia stood beside her, hands trembling slightly as she held the disclosure documents. The board is furious, she reported. 3 of them are threatening to call an emergency meeting to stop you. Let them try, Olivia said calmly. By the time they organize, it'll be done. Her phone buzzed. A text from Malcolm. Last chance, walk away now, or I'll be in that crowd, ready to ask questions that will destroy you. She typed back. Front row is reserved for people who matter. You'll have to stand in back. David Crenshaw entered, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 2 days. The legal team is having collective heart failure. The PR department has essentially staged a revolt, and your head of investor relations just submitted her resignation. Anyone else want to jump ship before I steer us into the storm? No, David said firmly. The rest of us are with you. Crazy as this is, we're with you. Olivia turned from the window to face her assembled team, David, Patricia, Marcus, and a handful of others who'd chosen to stay. Then let's go make corporate history. The elevator ride down felt like descending into battle. Olivia focused on her breathing, using the techniques Jack had taught her to center herself. As the doors opened to the conference room, she saw him immediately, front row as promised, wearing his only suit, looking uncomfortable but determined. Roberto sat beside him in what was probably his first suit ever, and Master Yamamoto was there too, his presence lending an air of gravitas that had nothing to do with corporate power. But it was the person sitting next to Jack who made Olivia's step falter for just a moment. Sarah Morrison's sister Jennifer, whom Olivia had tracked down and invited without telling Jack. The resemblance to her late sister was strong enough that Olivia saw Jack's jaw tighten when he noticed her. Malcolm was there too, standing in the back despite her jab about the front row, his expression smug. He'd brought his own reporter, someone from a financial blog known for takedown pieces on corporate executives. Perfect. Let them all watch. Olivia took the podium, waiting for the crowd to settle. The lights were harsh, the cameras numerous, but she'd faced worse. She'd faced 3 men in an alley. She'd faced her own broken places in a dojo at dawn. She could face this. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd built an empire from ruins. Sterling Industries has always prided itself on innovation, on pushing boundaries, on finding creative solutions to complex problems. Today, we're innovating again, but not in the way you might expect. Today, we're innovating in transparency. She saw Malcolm lean forward, anticipation clear on his face. He thought she was about to fall on her sword. He was half right. Over the past decade, Sterling Industries has used every legal financial tool available to maximize our profits and minimize our tax burden. Offshore subsidiaries, complex corporate structures, aggressive depreciation schedules, all legal, all common in our industry, and all things we've decided to change. The murmur from the crowd was immediate. Several reporters started typing furiously on their phones. But before we change, Olivia continued, we believe in full disclosure. Patricia Chen, our CFO, will now walk you through every creative accounting method we've used, every structure we've employed, every strategy that has allowed us to show the profits we have. Patricia stepped forward, her voice shaky at first but growing stronger as she laid out the complete financial picture. It was corporate suicide in slow motion. Every trick, every loophole, every aggressive interpretation of tax law laid bare. The stock price, displayed on a screen behind them, began to drop immediately. Olivia watched Malcolm's expression change from smugness to confusion to anger as he realized what was happening. She was burning down everything he'd planned to use against her, salting the earth so nothing could grow from it. When Patricia finished, Olivia returned to the podium. Now, some of you might wonder why we're doing this. The answer is simple. Integrity is worth more than profits. My stepbrother, Malcolm Sterling, recently approached me with these same documents, obtained through corporate espionage and personal blackmail, threatening to release them unless I sold him the company for half its value. The cameras swung toward Malcolm, who'd gone pale. He started pushing toward the exit, but found his way blocked by reporters who smelled blood in the water. Rather than submit to extortion, Olivia continued, we chose transparency. And more than that, we chose transformation. Effective immediately, Sterling Industries will restructure all of its financial operations. We will pay our full tax burden, no offshore havens, no complex structures designed to obscure rather than illuminate. We expect this will cost us approximately $200 million in the first year. The stock price continued to plummet. Several board members in the audience looked physically ill. However, Olivia said, her voice rising above the chaos, we also announced today a new initiative, the Morrison Foundation, named after Emma Morrison, a 7-year-old girl whose death reminds us that there are things more important than profit margins. The foundation will take the money we previously saved through aggressive accounting and invest it in community development, particularly in underserved neighborhoods where children like Emma deserve better opportunities. She saw Jack's eyes widen, saw Jennifer Morrison bring her hand to her mouth. She hadn't told anyone about this part. Furthermore, Olivia continued, Sterling Industries will transition to a stakeholder model rather than a shareholder model. Our employees, our communities, our environment, all will have a voice in our decisions. We will build not just for profit, but for purpose. The questions came like bullets once she finished her prepared remarks. Malcolm's planted reporter was first. Isn't this just an admission that Sterling Industries has been essentially lying to its investors for years? No, Olivia replied calmly. It's an admission that we've been playing by rules that prioritize cleverness over clarity. We're changing those rules. What about your shareholders who are watching their value disappear? They're watching short-term value disappear. Long-term, a company built on transparency and purpose will far exceed one built on financial engineering. Another reporter. Malcolm Sterling has alleged that you obtained your position through manipulation of your father's will. How do you respond? Olivia saw Malcolm trying to leave again, still trapped by the crowd. I respond with facts. My father's will was explicit. The company would go to whoever could best run it. The board evaluated both Malcolm and me and made their choice based on merit, not manipulation. The fact that Malcolm had been embezzling funds probably influenced their decision, though he chose not to prosecute out of respect for his mother. That was the kill shot. Malcolm finally pushed through the crowd and fled, his carefully constructed revenge plan in ruins. The questions continued for another hour, but Olivia had accomplished what she'd set out to do. She'd burned down Malcolm's leverage, transformed her company's philosophy, and somehow, in the middle of corporate chaos, honored a little girl whose father had taught her that protection meant standing up for others. When it was finally over, when the reporters had gone and the staff had dispersed to deal with the fallout, Olivia found Jack waiting in her office. Jennifer was with him, tears streaming down her face. Emma would have been so proud, Jennifer said, embracing Olivia. A foundation in her name, helping other kids. It's perfect. Thank you. That's... After Jennifer left, promising to stay in touch, Jack and Olivia stood alone in her office as the sun set over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. You named it after Emma, Jack said quietly. She deserved to have her name on something that mattered, just like the dojo. You could have warned me. Would you have let me if I had? Jack considered this, then shook his head. Probably not. I would have said it was too much, that you didn't owe us anything. I owe you everything, Olivia corrected. You saved my life. And you saved mine. I'd say we're even, except... He paused, studying her. Except I don't want to be even. I want to be... What? More. I want to be more to you than the man who saved you in an alley or the teacher who shows you how to fight. I want to be the person you come home to when days like this knock you down. I want to be the one who celebrates with you when you do impossible things like what you did today. Jack, I know I'm not what someone like you is supposed to end up with. I'm an ex-Marine who teaches karate and lives in a converted maintenance tunnel. You're a billionaire who just revolutionized corporate ethics, but... Olivia silenced him with a kiss, pouring into it all the words she couldn't say, all the feelings that had been building since that night in the alley. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. You're exactly what someone like me is supposed to end up with, she said. You're the only person who's ever protected me without wanting something in return. You're the only one who sees past the money to the frightened girl who lost her parents and has been fighting ever since. You're the only one who makes me feel safe enough to be vulnerable. So what happens now? Now we deal with the aftermath of what I just did. The stock will tank, the board will rage, and half my investors will bail. But in 6 months, maybe a year, when the market realizes that a company built on transparency and purpose is actually more valuable than one built on financial tricks, we'll be stronger than ever. I meant what happens with us. Olivia smiled, the first genuine smile she'd felt all day. With us? We continue training. You keep teaching me to fight, and I keep teaching you to trust that good things can happen to good people. We have dinner sometimes, maybe breakfast if dinner goes well. We figure out how to be two broken people who make each other whole. That sounds complicated. Everything worth doing is complicated. Jack pulled her close, and they stood there as the city lights began to flicker on, two warriors who'd found peace in each other's arms. Outside, the financial world was probably having a meltdown about Sterling Industries' radical transparency. Malcolm was probably somewhere plotting his next move, though he'd find precious little ammunition left. The board was definitely planning an emergency meeting, but in that moment, In that office high above Manhattan, none of that mattered. What mattered was the way Jack's arms felt around her, strong and safe. What mattered was the knowledge that she'd faced her worst fear, exposure, vulnerability, loss of control, and survived. What mattered was that she'd honored Emma's memory in a way that would help countless other children. "I should go," Jack said eventually. "Roberto has a class to teach, and I promised to be there." "The kids come first," Olivia agreed. "Always." "Come with me." "To the dojo. I'm not exactly dressed for training." "Not to train, to be part of something. The kids have heard about you, the lady who brought their sensei back. They want to meet you." Olivia looked down at her Chanel suit, at her Louboutin heels, at all the armor of corporate power. Then she looked at Jack, wearing his ill-fitting suit with more dignity than most men wore custom tailoring. "Give me 10 minutes to change," she said. The dojo was packed when they arrived, kids and adults filling the space with an energy that made the corporate press conference seem sterile by comparison. Roberto was leading warm-ups, his voice confident as he guided the students through stretches. When he saw Jack and Olivia enter, his face lit up. "Sensei! Miss Sterling! Everyone, our sensei is here!" The students turned, bowing in unison, and Olivia found herself bowing back, the gesture feeling more natural than any corporate handshake. Jack changed into his G and took over the class, but not before introducing Olivia to the students. "This is Ms. Sterling," he said. "She's the reason we have this dojo, the reason we can train together. But more than that, she's a student herself, learning just like all of you that strength isn't about being invincible. It's about getting up every time you fall." A little girl, maybe 6 years old, raised her hand. "Ms. Sterling, are you really a billionaire?" Olivia knelt down to the girl's level. "I am. But you know what's more important than being a billionaire?" "What?" "Being brave. And every time you come here, every time you practice, even when it's hard, you're being brave. That makes you richer than any amount of money could." The girl beamed and returned to her position. The class continued, and Olivia watched from Emma's corner, understanding for the first time what Jack had built here. It wasn't just a martial arts school. It was a place where kids learned they could be more than their circumstances, where discipline became dignity, where the broken could become whole. Her phone buzzed with messages. The board demanding answers, reporters wanting follow-ups, investors threatening litigation. She turned it off. For once, the corporate world could wait. Master Yamamoto appeared beside her, moving with his characteristic silence. "You did a brave thing today," he said. "Or a foolish thing. Time will tell." Bravery and foolishness often look the same in the moment. It is only in retrospect that we know which was which. He paused, watching Jack demonstrate a combination to the advanced students. "He is different now. Lighter. He's healing. You both are. Together." They watched the class in comfortable silence for a while. Then Yamamoto said, "There is an old Japanese proverb, 'Fall down 7 times, stand up 8. But it does not mention that sometimes when we fall, someone helps us stand. That help does not diminish our strength. It multiplies it.' Is that your way of blessing whatever is happening between Jack and me? My blessing is irrelevant, but Emma's would not be." The old master pulled out a worn envelope from his G. "Jack asked me to keep this for him. He said he couldn't bear to read it. It is the last thing Emma wrote, the day before she died. Perhaps now he is ready." Olivia took the envelope, her hands trembling slightly. "I can't give this to him. It's too personal." "Everything real is personal, Sterling-san. That is what makes it matter." The class ended, the students dispersing with the kind of exhausted satisfaction that came from hard work. Roberto stayed behind to clean the dojo, and Jack joined Olivia in Emma's corner, still in his G, sweat making him look more alive than she'd ever seen him. "Master Yamamoto gave me something," Olivia said, holding out the envelope. "He said you asked him to keep it." Jack went very still, recognizing his daughter's handwriting on the envelope. "For Daddy," written in purple crayon. "I couldn't," he said. "After she died, I couldn't bear to read it." "You don't have to now." "No, I do. I've been running from her memory, hiding in grief. But you were right. She wouldn't want that." He opened the envelope with careful fingers, as if it might dissolve at rough treatment. Inside was a drawing, stick figures representing Jack and Emma, standing in the dojo, both wearing black belts even though Emma had only made it to purple. Above them, she'd drawn a rainbow, and underneath in her careful printing, "Daddy is the strongest because he protects everyone. When I grow up, I want to protect everyone too. Love, Emma. P.S. Thank you for teaching me to be brave." Jack's tears came silently, running down his face as he held his daughter's last message. Olivia wrapped her arms around him, holding him as he grieved and healed in equal measure. "She knew," he said finally. "She understood what I was trying to teach her. She understood who you are. A protector, a teacher, a father who loved her enough to show her how to be strong. I couldn't protect her from that drunk driver. No. But you protected her from thinking the world was only darkness. You gave her 7 years of light. That matters, Jack. That matters more than anything." They stayed there as the dojo grew quiet around them, two people who'd found each other in violence and built something from the wreckage. Outside, New York continued its relentless pace, indifferent to personal transformation. The stock market was probably calculating Sterling Industries' losses. Malcolm was probably drinking himself into oblivion. The board was probably drafting resolutions. But in Emma's corner, in a dojo built on second chances, Jack Morrison and Olivia Sterling held each other and understood that sometimes the greatest strength came from admitting weakness, the greatest wealth from giving it away, and the greatest love from those who'd lost everything and chosen to love again anyway. "What happens tomorrow?" Jack asked eventually. "Tomorrow I fight the board, convince the investors, and rebuild the company on new foundations." "And tomorrow night?" "Tomorrow night I have a karate lesson with a very demanding teacher." "He sounds difficult." "He is, but he's worth it." Jack kissed her then, soft and deep, a promise of tomorrows they'd face together. When they finally left the dojo, walking out into the New York night, they walked as partners in the truest sense, not just in business or training, but in the complicated, messy, beautiful business of living. The city stretched out before them, full of dangers and possibilities in equal measure. But for the first time since that night in the alley, neither of them walked alone. They had each other, and they had the knowledge that sometimes the most unexpected encounters led to the most profound transformations. In the distance, sirens wailed, the city's constant reminder that danger never slept. But danger had brought them together, and from that danger, they'd built something stronger than either could have imagined. A dojo where kids learned to hope, a company learning to value purpose over profit, a love story between two people who'd forgotten how to trust happiness until they found it in each other. As they reached the corner where they would part, Jack heading to his small apartment that Olivia was already planning to help him leave, Olivia to her penthouse that felt less empty knowing he existed, Jack stopped. "That first night in the alley," he said, "I almost didn't intervene. I'd given up on being someone who mattered, but something made me stand up." "What?" "I think it was Emma. I think somehow she knew that saving you would save me, too." Olivia squeezed his hand. "Then we both owe her everything." "We'll make it count," Jack promised. "The foundation, the dojo, all of it. We'll make her name mean something." "It already does. It means a father's love that transcends loss. It means a little girl whose courage inspired a broken warrior to stand up one more time. It means that sometimes, in the darkest alleys, we find our greatest light." They parted then, but it didn't feel like separation. It felt like two streams that had diverged temporarily but would flow back together, stronger for having covered more ground. Tomorrow would bring challenges, corporate battles, training sessions, the slow work of healing and building. But tonight, they'd both won victories that couldn't be measured in stock prices or belt rankings. They'd won the victory of connection over isolation, of trust over fear, of love over loss. And in a city that measured everything in dollars and cents, that was the kind of wealth that truly mattered. The wedding wasn't supposed to happen in the dojo, but when the historic church they'd booked had a pipe burst that morning, it seemed like fate rather than misfortune. Roberto and the advanced students had transformed the space in 3 hours flat, hanging white silk across the weapons wall, arranging orchids, Emma's favorite flower, according to Jennifer, in simple glass vases, setting up chairs for the 100 guests who represented the unlikely merger of two very different worlds. Olivia stood in what had been the storage room, now converted to a makeshift bridal suite, wearing a simple white dress that cost less than the Chanel suit she'd worn to that press conference a year ago. Patricia Chen, now not just her CFO but her maid of honor, was fixing the last pin in her hair. "The board members are here," Patricia reported with amusement. "They look deeply confused by the venue change." "They've been confused by every decision I've made this year," Olivia replied. "Why stop now?" It had been a year of transformation that exceeded even Olivia's ambitious projections. Sterling Industries' stock had initially crashed 40% after her transparency announcement, but within 6 months it had not only recovered but surpassed its previous high. The company's new stakeholder model had attracted a different kind of investor: patient capital, impact funds, sovereign wealth funds from countries prioritizing sustainable development. The Morrison Foundation had already provided scholarships for 300 kids and funded 5 new dojos in underserved neighborhoods. But more importantly, the company had soul now. Employees worked harder for a mission they believed in than they ever had for quarterly bonuses. The turnover rate had dropped to near zero. They'd even won back clients they'd lost, drawn by the novel concept of a real estate company that actually cared about communities. Malcolm had disappeared entirely, his reputation destroyed by the attempted blackmail. Last Olivia heard, he was in Dubai, trying to reinvent himself in a market that didn't know his history. She found she didn't care anymore. That chapter was closed. 5 minutes, Jennifer Morrison announced, peeking in. She'd become a regular at the dojo, teaching a children's art class on weekends, her presence a living connection to Emma that brought Jack comfort rather than pain. Through the door, Olivia could hear the string quartet warming up, students from Juilliard who trained at the dojo in exchange for lessons. Everything about this day was a blend of worlds that shouldn't work together, but did. Master Yamamoto appeared in the doorway, dignified in his formal kimono. At 94, he'd insisted on officiating, having gotten ordained online specifically for this occasion. "It is time, Sterling-san, though I suppose after today that will no longer be your name." "Morrison Sterling," Olivia corrected. "We're both keeping our names, just adding to them." "Modern solutions," Yamamoto said with a slight smile. "Jack-san is nervous, by the way. He has checked the door 17 times to make sure you have not changed your mind." "Never," Olivia said firmly. The ceremony itself was a blur of moments that would crystallize in memory later. Vincent Calabrese, of all people, walking her down the aisle because he'd become an unlikely friend and she had no father to do it. The gasp from the corporate crowd when they saw Jack in his dress uniform, medals they'd never known about making him look like the warrior he was. Roberto standing as best man, no longer the gang member from that first day but a college freshman on full scholarship, teaching at the dojo part-time. But the moment that stopped time was when Jack saw her walking toward him. His face transformed with a joy so pure it made several people tear up. He'd learned to smile again over the past year, but this was different. This was a man who'd thought happiness was behind him, discovering it was still ahead. "You came," he said when she reached him, quiet enough that only she could hear. "Did you doubt I would? Every day for the past year I've woken up afraid you'd realize you could do better. Every day for the past year I've woken up knowing I couldn't." Master Yamamoto cleared his throat. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here in this place of discipline and growth, where warriors are forged and children learn to be strong." The vows were simple, personal, nothing like the elaborate productions Olivia had attended in her corporate life. Jack spoke about finding light in darkness, about second chances and the courage to accept happiness. Olivia talked about strength that came not from standing alone, but from choosing to stand together. When Yamamoto pronounced them married, when Jack kissed her with a tenderness that held a year of healing and hope, the dojo erupted in a mixture of applause and traditional martial arts shouts that probably violated several wedding protocol rules. The reception was held right there in the dojo, catered by the dim sum restaurant next door whose owner Jack had helped with a break-in 6 months ago. Board members in $1,000 suits sat next to kids from the neighborhood, eating pot stickers and talking about things that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings. Olivia's corporate friends watched in fascination as Roberto's former gang friends, now all enrolled in GED programs, performed a martial arts demonstration. "This is the strangest wedding I've ever attended," David Crenshaw admitted to Olivia during the reception. and somehow the most genuine. That's because it's not a merger, Olivia replied, watching Jack teach a curious board member's child a basic defensive stance. It's a partnership. As the evening wound down, Jack and Olivia found themselves in Emma's corner, taking a break from the celebration. Above the plaque Olivia had installed was a new addition, the drawing Emma had made, now framed, showing her father as a protector. She would have loved this, Jack said softly. A wedding in the dojo. Her artwork on display. All these kids learning what she wanted to learn. She's here, Olivia said with certainty, in every child who trains here, in the foundation bearing her name, in the way you've chosen to live instead of just survive. In the way we've chosen, Jack corrected, pulling her close. I couldn't have done any of this without you. You saved me first. We saved each other. Although technically, I saved you from 3 mediocre criminals, and you saved me from myself. Your job was harder. Before Olivia could respond, the light suddenly went out. For a moment, there was confused murmuring, then emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in that familiar green glow that reminded them both of that first night in the alley. Power outage, Marcus reported, checking his phone. Half the block is out. Should I? Leave it, Olivia said. It's perfect. And it was. In the dim emergency lighting, the dojo looked almost mystical. Someone had brought out candles, and soon the space was illuminated by flickering flames that made everything seem timeless. The string quartet, Game for Anything, played an acoustic set. Children who should have been scared of the dark were instead delighted by the adventure. Dance with me, Jack said, extending his hand. They moved to the center of the floor, other couples joining them, and swayed to a melody that needed no amplification. In the candlelight surrounded by the unlikely family they'd built, Olivia understood that this moment, this place, this man, was what she'd been fighting toward her entire life without knowing it. I have a surprise for you, she whispered as they danced. Another dojo? You've already funded 5. Not a dojo. She took his hand, placed it on her stomach. A student, due in about 7 months. Jack stopped dancing, his eyes widening. We're having a baby. The joy and terror that crossed his face in equal measure was exactly what she'd expected. He'd lost a child, and the prospect of having another had to be both wonderful and terrifying. I know you're scared, she said softly. I'm scared too. But this child will have something Emma didn't. 2 parents, a whole community, an entire dojo full of protectors. Emma had everything she needed, Jack said firmly. She had love, she had strength, she had 7 perfect years. This child will have different things, not better ones. Different but equal. Different but blessed. He pulled her close, and she could feel him trembling slightly. A baby. We're having a baby. We're having a warrior, Olivia corrected. Boy or girl, they'll grow up in this dojo, learning that strength comes in many forms. The lights flickered back on then, revealing a room full of people who'd been perfectly content in the darkness, who'd found ways to celebrate even when the power failed. It seemed like a metaphor for everything, finding light in darkness, building joy from sorrow, creating family from strangers. Vincent Calabrese approached them, looking uncomfortable but determined. I wanted to give you this, he said, handing Jack an envelope. A wedding present. Inside was a deed. Thomas Whitfield's family home in the Hamptons, somehow legally transferred to the Morrison Foundation. How did you... Olivia started. The Whitfield family owed me certain favors. I called them in. Vincent's expression was unreadable. That house should go to something good, something that honors the little girl who died because of their son's choices. This is worth millions, Jack said. Then sell it and build more dojos, or turn it into a retreat for kids who've never seen the ocean. Do something that would make your daughter proud. Vincent turned to leave, then paused. You know, Morrison, that night in the alley, my men were never supposed to hurt Miss Sterling, just scare her. But they exceeded orders, got violent. You stopped something that could have gone very wrong. Your men are dead, Jack pointed out, killed for failing. Not by my order. That was someone trying to impress me with their initiative. They're no longer in my organization. Vincent straightened his tie, a gesture that somehow conveyed finality. The world is changing. Even families like mine need to change with it, or become extinct. What you two are building, legitimate strength, community power, That's the future. The old ways are dying. After he left, Jack and Olivia stood in stunned silence for a moment. Then Jack laughed, a full, rich sound that drew everyone's attention. "What?" Olivia asked. "A year ago, I was living in a tunnel, convinced my life was over. Now I'm married to a billionaire revolutionary, running a dojo, about to be a father again, and apparently on speaking terms with organized crime families who give us property as wedding gifts. If someone had told me this story, I'd have thought they were insane." "Are you happy?" Olivia asked, the question that mattered more than any other. Jack considered this, looking around the dojo, at Roberto helping clean up, at Master Yamamoto dozing in a chair with a satisfied smile, at the children from the neighborhood playing with board members' kids, at the space where his daughter had once sat and now bore her name. "I'm not sure happy is the right word," he said finally. "I'm whole. The broken pieces are still there, they'll always be there, but they're part of something bigger now. The cracks are where the light gets in." Leonard Cohen, Olivia recognized the reference. "Emma would approve of you quoting poetry. She would approve of all of this, especially you." As the reception finally ended, as guests departed into the New York night, Jack and Olivia remained in the dojo. They didn't have a honeymoon planned. There were classes to teach, a company to run, a pregnancy to navigate. Their life wouldn't suddenly become easier because they'd married. If anything, it would become more complex. But as they stood together in the space that had brought them together, that had healed them both in different ways, they knew they had something more valuable than ease. They had purpose. They had each other. They had proof that sometimes the worst moments in life were just preparation for the best ones. "Ready to go home?" Jack asked. "We are home," Olivia replied, gesturing to the dojo. "This is where we began. This is where we'll build everything else." A corporate empire run from a dojo? A life built on protecting others, teaching strength, refusing to let circumstances define limitations. The dojo is just the physical space. What we're building is bigger. Jack picked up Emma's photograph from its place of honor, touching it gently to his lips before setting it back down. "Good night, baby girl. Thank you for sending her to me." "To us," Olivia corrected. "She sent us to each other." They left the dojo hand in hand, walking through streets that had once held danger but now felt full of possibility. Behind them, the building stood quiet but not empty. It hummed with the energy of transformation, of children learning to be strong, of broken people becoming whole, of love finding a way through loss. A year ago, 3 men had attacked a billionaire in an alley, and a broken warrior had stood up one last time. That moment of violence had become a catalyst for redemption. Proof that sometimes we find our salvation in the most unexpected places through the most unlikely people. The city moved around them, eternal and indifferent, but they had carved out their own space within it. A place where strength meant more than money, where protecting others was the highest calling, where a little girl's memory could inspire hundreds of other children to be brave. As they reached their apartment, Jack had finally agreed to move in with her, though he insisted on keeping his training space in the tunnel as a reminder. Olivia felt the baby move for the first time, a flutter so slight she might have imagined it. "What?" Jack asked, seeing her expression. "Our child just said hello." Jack placed his hand on her stomach, his touch gentle but protective. "Hello, little warrior. Your daddy's going to teach you to be strong, and your mama's going to teach you to be smart. And together, we'll teach you that the best fights are the ones that protect others." "And Emma will be your guardian angel," Olivia added softly. "Watching over you, making sure you know that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it." They went inside, closing the door on a day that had transformed them from 2 separate people into something unified. Tomorrow would bring its challenges: corporate battles, dojo classes, pregnancy appointments, the complex work of building a life together. But tonight, they had won everything that mattered. They had chosen hope over fear, love over loss, and together over alone. In a world that often rewarded isolation and cynicism, they had found strength in vulnerability and wealth in generosity. The story that began with violence in an alley had become something else entirely, a testament to the power of second chances, the strength found in broken places, and the unexpected ways that salvation arrives. Sometimes it comes in the form of a homeless warrior who remembers how to fight. Sometimes it's a billionaire who learns that true wealth has nothing to do with money. And sometimes it's a little girl's memory that reminds us all that love transcends loss, that courage can be taught, and that even in the darkest alleys, heroes still stand ready to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Outside, New York continued its restless existence, unaware that in one small corner of its vast expanse, a revolution had taken place. Not a revolution of violence or politics, but of hearts transformed and lives redeemed. It was the kind of revolution that happened one person at a time, one choice at a time, one act of courage at a time. And it all started with 3 men in an alley, a billionaire in danger, and a single dad who saved her with his karate skills, proving that sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin with the simplest acts of human decency, and that love, in all its forms, remains the most powerful force for transformation in a world that desperately needs heroes.